Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you. It is Father's Day. I'd like to do something different. This was brought to me by our music director, David York, a tradition that they had at his former church, Center for Spiritual Living in Portland. And I would just like to invite all of the men gathered here to stand right where you are. And those of you who are watching us online, just you don't have to stand, but just know that this is for you. This is called a Father's Day prayer by Kirk Lodeman, and our dads in all ways are worthy of our prayer and our praise. Let us praise those fathers who have striven to balance the demands of work, marriage, and children with an honest awareness of both joy and sacrifice. Let us praise those fathers who, lacking a good model for a father, have worked to become a good father. Let us praise those fathers who, by their own account, were not always there for their children, but who continue to offer those children, now grown, their love and support. Let us pray for those fathers who have been wounded by the neglect and hostility of their children. Let us praise those fathers who, despite divorce, have remained in their children's lives. Let us praise those fathers whose children are adopted and whose love and support has offered healing. Let us praise those fathers who, as stepfathers, freely choose the obligation of fatherhood and earned their stepchildren's love and respect. Let us praise those fathers who have lost a child to death and continue to hold the child in their heart. Let us praise those men who have no children but cherish the next generation as if they were their own. Let us praise those men who have fathered us in their role as mentors and guides. Let us praise those men who are about to become fathers. May they openly delight in their children. Let us praise those fathers who have died but live on in our memory, and whose love continues to nurture us. Thank you, God. Amen. Isn't that beautiful? Thank you, David York, for bringing that to us. Today is part 3 of our Divine Integration series, and all month we're seeking to look for the unity. That there are different things going on, but there is a way, instead of looking at it as a war or a battle or things in opposition, there is an integration that can occur. We've talked about those things that have come into our lives that we did not pray for, expect, affirm, or want, and yet here they are. And how do we integrate the message? Last week we talked about, are we listening? Are we listening to what our life is speaking to us, trying to get our attention? Life is supporting and leading us in the right ways, and sometimes it doesn't feel like it. And today I want to talk about integrating the divine masculine. The divine masculine is a powerful balance to the divine feminine. Most of the time, I just want to say that this is where we differ from traditional Christian theology, and that we are non-dualistic. When we talk about the polar opposites of, say, light and dark, we don't see them as warring in opposition to each other. They're balancing an essential wholeness. And if you think about that beautiful image from the East, the yin and the yang symbol, where the light and the dark intermingle, they support each other. And within the light, there is a spot of the dark. And within the dark, there's a spot of the light. There is an essential wholeness that is represented in two opposites. And so as we're talking about the divine masculine today, we can think of it as being that part of us which moves, which creates, which acts, that is the becoming nature, that we get to direct something in our lives. It's our ability to be the captain of our own ship. And when that divine masculine energy is grounded in the divine feminine, which is about awareness, and gratitude, the ability to experience satisfaction. This is the way we move forward. But it's Father's Day, so I want to talk about my dad. Is that all right? I have a picture of him up here. So what I hope to do today is to use my dad as an illustration of the way that he taught me about the divine masculine. This is an image when I was living in Reno. He and my mom came to see me a couple times up there, and we would go to Lake Tahoe. And this image is just how I think about my dad. Just, he's got my back, and he still does. This is my 4th Father's Day without him. And I have to tell you, this morning, I've been working on this message all morning and this illustration, knowing that my dad is gone, but I had the thought, I got to call my dad. And then I realized that pang, like that knife. It's like, oh, he's not here. I can't call him anymore. But I know he's here, and that's how I feel him. I feel his supportive, loving energy behind me. My dad was not perfect. The way I talk about him, sometimes you might get the image that he was, but he was not. He could be ornery, he could be stubborn, he could be moody. If he was pleased with you, you knew it. If he wasn't pleased with you, you knew it. A little competitive. The Gott men tend to be very competitive. I was the one that didn't get a lot of the athletic genes, but he was very athletic. He played professional fast-pitch softball in the Texas League in the 1950s. He played baseball in college. Both my brothers played baseball in college. When he was about my age, actually a little older, I think he might have even been 60, but at least in his late 50s, where there's a family gathering, and I have a cousin who's he's a long, but his mom is a Gott. He's got that competitive thing too. His name's Johnny, and he's three months younger than me, and my dad and he were talking and a little competitive, and my dad said, Johnny Long, I could still outrun you in a foot race. And Johnny's like, there's no way you could do that. So guess what they did? They raced. Guess who won? My dad. In his late 50s, maybe 60. He outran a 20-something and beat him in a race. So, Johnny's pride was so wounded, became, for the next 20 years, this was a family joke, that Johnny would want a rematch, and my dad was like, I have nothing to prove to you. That's my dad. Funny. He was a Virgo. I don't know a lot about astrology, but what I've been told is that Virgos like to do things the right way, and they like other people to do things the right way. That if there's a thing worth doing, it's worth doing right. That was my dad. And as I mentioned, he's very athletic, and he became an official, a referee and umpire. He was really good at it. And so he also, we didn't have a lot of money, and my dad did a lot of different things to help support the family. He had a full-time job, and then he also would call games, basketball games mostly, but baseball and softball as well, usually at the high school and college level. And in 2000, he was inducted into the Oklahoma Officiating Association Hall of Fame. And he was just really, here's the thing about my dad, he was fair. That thing that he had in him that made you wanted to do it right, wanted other people to do it right, made him a really good basketball referee. He did not take sides. He followed the rules. It was fun. He would often officiate the high school championships in Oklahoma City, so we would sometimes see his picture in the paper. In the back there, he'd be looking at the game, or sometimes on the evening news, we'd see him in the background there as he was officiating these games. My dad really demonstrated some incredible lessons to me. I think about that. I've been drawn during this turbulent time we've been going through to some of the ancient wisdom, particularly in the Hebrew scriptures, in the wisdom teachings, in the Psalms and the Proverbs. And what's been coming to me all week is Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And my father, faulted and human as he was, knew how to raise his boys in the right way and taught us the value of love and commitment and family and loyalty. And I have gone away from that many times in my life, but there's something he instilled in me that brought me back. And I'm so grateful. So Russell Gott, I love you. I feel you with me today. My friend Karen Russo is a great teacher of spiritual abundance and prosperity, and she has a book called The Money Keys, and in that she talks about using the divine masculine and the divine feminine energy in harmony as we work with creating that sense of the abundant life and the experience and the actual lived experience, demonstrating, manifesting abundance in all areas of our life. And she talks about the divine masculine as being around three things. It's about intention, it's about choice, and it's about action. So I wanted to share a little story of all those three things that I learned from my dad. I'm going to start with intention. My father was really intentional. If he had his mind set on something, it was focused, lasered. My mom and he would get into so many fights. My dad was, another quality of Virgos is they can tend to be they can be a little neat, a little organized. And my mom was not so much. Well, she can be, but she likes her stuff, And so we had this old detached garage, and that was where things went. If we weren't using them right now, they went there. But as more things went there, my dad would get more and more irritated, and one day he would just intend, we're cleaning out that garage. I remember once he threw away a bunch of terracotta pots that my mom was going to use, and I think that fight lasted for 5 or 6 years. I'm not sure. But he had a strong intention. He wanted something a certain way. I've shared this story before. This was years ago. I was a young adult. I think I was in New Thought at that point. I was really sort of becoming a little bit woke around the oppressed people and minorities and what we need to do to heal our world. And I come from a very traditional and little conservative theology of Christianity. And my older brother, who is a Pentecostal pastor, we would sometimes get into conversations. One time we got into a conversation when I was there with my parents around whether or not Mormons are actually going to heaven. I know. You're in unity. I know where you all are on that one. But it was getting heated. And I was angry. And he was angry. And it's like, that thing? Well, I'm sure you've never experienced this, but we were talking at each other. I didn't mean to look at you, Miss Willer. But when you're talking I'm just going to hammer you with my opinion until you finally wake up, you fool. That's the kind of conversation we were having. It wasn't working. It was getting heated. And my dad came in from the kitchen. He said, enough. We're not doing this. And it stopped. He said, we are a family and we will not behave this way. If we can't talk about it and be civil, then we're just not going to do it. Now, I have a 15-year-old niece who is becoming very woke, and on Facebook, she's really something. I'm no longer the only one out there in my family, but she posted this about, she said, saying that racism will go away when we stop talking about it is like saying cancer will go away when we stop researching it. 15 years old in Oklahoma. And I was thinking about this wisdom from my dad and his intention for the family to be in harmony. And then my niece was saying, well, no, we do need to talk. And so what I've come to is this understanding is that my dad's intention was for peace in the family, love and respect. And if we can hold that as the container, then maybe we can have the conversations that need to happen. I mean, I love the Healing the Heart of America initiative that we've been doing now for 4 years in this church. Having the hard conversations, but setting a container of love and respect. That I speak my truth, and I don't talk at you, and I'm not hitting you over the head with my ideology. That's the intention that my dad had, and he would rather us just not talk at all about it if we couldn't be civil. But what I want to take the lesson around intention is, what is the container I'm wanting to build that I can place and live my experience into? And his for our family was for harmony. And we felt it. And it changed us. It was powerful. Now, he was also what is known as a yellow dog Democrat. Do you know what that is? That if there was a yellow dog run on the Democratic ticket, he would have voted for him. Coming out of the Depression era. And anyway, he would always look for a sympathetic ear to his cause because there weren't many people aligned with him politically up there. But a good man who had a strong intention that beyond any ideology, he was about love and respect. So the second quality of the divine masculine is about choice. Choice. You see, we have come into the incarnate reality, the relative reality, where we do experience everything is God, but I can experience God this way or this way. I can choose to be in alignment with my principles, or I can choose to go off on a different journey. And the choice that we are given it's a powerful I really think it's the whole purpose of being incarnate. I think it's the whole purpose of having the physical universe so that we can choose. We can choose God or we can choose not God. Now, ultimately, in absolute reality, it all is resolved back in the Heavenly Father, the Heavenly Mother. But here, we get to choose. And here's the thing, it is powerful and it's beautiful, but it can also set us up for regret. Have you ever had that experience? Like, oh, I wish I had had the fish. Or I wish I had chosen differently. So this is one example that I feel like my dad taught me about choice and the divine masculine, but in a way that I didn't want to emulate him. You see, I think my dad carried regret with him a lot. He came from a difficult home. Not a broken home. His parents were married for many, many years. It was a shotgun wedding, if you all remember what that means. That means that my grandmother was pregnant when they got married. And I think my grandfather always resented having to be married. Now, later in life, in his 50s, he had an incredible conversion in faith and became a devout man of God. But for most of his life, he was an ornery son of a gun. Abusive to his wife and his children. And my dad had a strong intention again to not be the father that his father was. But I think he carried a lot of unresolved shame around the home that he grew up in. He was a talented athlete, and he got scholarships to go to play at, now it's Central Oklahoma University, then it was Central State College in Edmond, Oklahoma. Played on the baseball team, but he was poor, and so he had a work-study program where he had to wash dishes in the cafeteria. And there was something about that was shameful and embarrassing to him. And so he dropped out of college. I think he regretted it his whole life. He was brilliant. My dad was so smart. He wanted to be a chemical engineer. And he would have done really well. He had that kind of a mind. And I felt that regret in him a lot. I think it's one of the reasons that he always encouraged me to follow my dreams and follow my gift. He knew I was gifted, and he never told me to think about what was going to pay the bills. Just do what is right for you, because I think he felt like he had deferred some of his dreams. He had a sense of heaviness around that, I remember, and a sense of not quite measuring up to what could have been. I knew that he knew he did not want that for me. And even though there are some in the family who have not supported all of my choices in my life, my dad was my greatest champion, because I think that he felt like he didn't get that support from his dad, and he was going to give that to me and my brothers and my nephews and nieces at all cost, because I think he had regret about the road not taken often in his life. But what if, this is what I would like to offer you today about choice. What if there is no wrong choice? What if that our belief in the oneness and the omnipotence and omnipresence of God were so powerful that even if I go here and it doesn't appear to be right, there will be another door that will lead me here? How many of you experienced that? Man, I have taken so many wrong right turns in my life. Really. I knew I needed to do something, and well, this is the choice. I think I'm going to choose this. Nope. But it leads to this. I've shared the story here that I got here through one of those wrong right choices. I put my application in to be a music director and associate minister at CSL Seattle. Thought that was where I was going, which led to a conversation with a minister in Reno who offered me a job. And when I was there, I got invited to the Big Sky Retreat where I met Howard Caesar and dun-da-dun-da-dun. You see, my understanding about choice is that we have to make a choice, and we are always making a choice. Even when you choose not to choose, that's a choice. And so we choose grounded in love and intention, but here's the great part. We trust that even if it's not the right choice, it will lead to the right place. And that, I'm so grateful that has been this may be something I didn't quite get from my dad, but his support and his intentionality led me to a teaching called Unity, called New Thought, where I've come to understand the power of our choice and the way that we're supported underneath that choice forever. We will always be guided to where we need to go. And then the last of these three categories is action. That's the divine masculine. That's the part of us that we're acting. We're using our resources and our choice and our intention to do something in the world. As I mentioned, my dad regretted not finishing college and not having that life. But you know what? It worked out okay for him too. He spent a couple of years in the Army. It was between World War II and Korea, and he worked in Germany in the history department, helping to write the Army history he was actually a typist in the history department of the U.S. Army in Germany, stationed in Heidelberg. Had a short-lived marriage, didn't work out. Came back to Oklahoma, kind of looking for the next thing to do. I think he had already played softball in Texas, was looking around, and a friend of his, Jughead Wilson, yes, Jughead, invited him to a dance up the next town over on a Saturday night, and there was a young lady there that caught his eye. My dad had an intention around that, too. And he said, who is that? He said, who is that, Jughead? He said, oh, Russ, you don't want anything to do with her. She's engaged. I think you all know where this story is going. And my mom, young, pretty Janice McCauley, was dancing with her brother, my Uncle Bubba. I've talked to you about him. And my dad thought that must be the guy. And so he came up, he tells the story of it. And he didn't know that was her brother. And they laughed about that for years. And well, something about his decisiveness and his willingness to act caught her eye. He said on the third time he came out to the farm to visit her, the picture of her fiancé, Harold, was no longer on public view. A few weeks later, he escorted her to the post office where they returned Harold's engagement ring. They were married in June 16th of 1961, before my dad's Alzheimer's really began to take hold. We got to celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary with 200 family members and close friends. People had known them their whole lives. My dad became very soft in the later part of his life, very soft-hearted. When I was a little kid, I was scared to death of him because, he was that right thing. And if I got, oh, boy, you did not, punishing. He was severe. But as we both, I think I got, a little bit stronger, and he got a little softer, and he became my confidant, my greatest champion in our family, and many family gatherings for Christmas usually would have a bunch of, both my brothers have kids and lots of grandkids, and he would look around at, I remember one time there were 26 Gotts that were in the gathering room that came from that dance in Barnesville, Oklahoma. And he said, that's the best thing I ever did in my life, was to marry your mother. It's the best thing I ever did in my life. So even the wrong choices led to a great action. When I was thinking about giving this talk, about how we move into intention and choice and action in these times in which we find ourselves living, I was like, boy, how does it change? There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of againstness. There's a lot of movement of energy. And what I swear, I was like just working on my talk yesterday afternoon, and the thought plopped into my head, whitewater kayaking. Thank God for Google, whitewater kayaking. Did you know it's a sport? It's an Olympic sport. I read about whitewater kayaking, and I think that that's where we are in our culture today. There's a lot of turbulence. Here are the things that in whitewater rafting, how it differs from flatwater rafting, is that you have to be incredibly intentional about where you're wanting to go in the water. And you have to make choices quickly. And then you have to take action. You have to paddle hard. You have to go against the current and then with the current, against the current and with the current. You have to watch for the obstacles. It is such an example of the divine masculine in action. This is a time that we need to be rooted and grounded in the divine feminine, our awareness, our sense of gratitude, and knowing that all is going to be well. And we have to be in our faith, but we have to be willing to move and move quickly when God calls us. To be responsive to what's coming before us so that we can make a choice. A bold choice. And even when we mess up, guess what? We'll be redirected. One of the things you have to learn how to do if you're going to be a whitewater kayaker is you have to do what they call the Eskimo Roll. You know what that is? That's where you go underwater and come back out on top. They also recommend you're a good swimmer if you're going to be a whitewater kayaker. This is a time that's calling for our greatness, my beloveds. This is a time where, I mentioned last week, when we are in a culturally evolutionary moment and the order that we've known is being moved into chaos and disorder, many of us want to go back to the order that we knew, that's comfortable, that's sure, where people know their place and they're doing the right thing. That's what many of us are looking for, but there is a third option, where we don't stay in the chaos, we don't go back to what before, we move to a reorder, a higher order, a better way of being in community with greater equality and greater empowerment for all of us, where we come together in true unity, where we can have those hard talks, where we can look at our own assumptions and biases, and every one of us have them. Every one of us think we know more than we know sometimes. I feel, Laddie, do you mind bringing that picture up one more time of my dad? So many times in this almost 3 years now I've been senior minister, I don't know what to do. And I feel this energy of my beloved Father standing behind me going, you got this. You got this. So I don't know what kind of relationship you had with your earthly father. Joe York, you're a lucky man. Have your dad. But I want you to know that there is an energy of love and support and wisdom behind you all the time, seeking to guide you in your intentions, to help you make the highest choices, and to take action where you get to use the time and the resources that God has given you to help us all grow up and be better. And this church is a part of it. I don't know what it is we're going to be called to do, but I know God has an intention for us to be a part of the healing of humanity. I don't know if you can feel how loved you are today, but if no one has told you that you're loved, I love you. And this is a community where we are waiting to wrap our arms around you as we help each other live and grow and reveal the Christ on planet Earth. I love you. Thank you. Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.